Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and everybody in between, welcome to another episode of the Chaps Chat Cats, a part of the Hoops Crew Media Network. My name is Jake. I'm down with the Rona, and I'm joined by the one and only down with the sickness. Sambo and Johnny, how are you, chaps?
Good.
Yeah,
Oh,
better than you.
It
By the
wouldn't be
sounds of
hard.
things, yeah.
I'm doing this episode with the sunglasses on because I've got sort of like patient zero eyes going on. Didn't want to disturb, any young viewers at home watching, so I've got the sunnies on. Hopefully on the mend soon. But anyway, big show to get into tonight. Cats v Suns round 10 preview pod. So we're going to get into all of that lovely chat. And then for the Patreon subscribers, we are going to duck behind the Patreon curtain and talk all about our Patreon match predictions. So if you want to get that part of the show, go on over, start your 7-day free trial on the Hoops Crew Patreon channel. You get this blurb every week. Extended pods, early access pods, VFL men's and women's coverage, the whole bit. So I won't bore you too much there. Also, want to take a moment just quickly to thank the wonderful people at Valhalla Brewing, our network sponsor. If you're in Geelong, if you're in North Geelong, go on over, do yourself a treat and visit the brew hall. Do yourself a favor, do yourself a treat, whatever, treat yourself. If you're in the CBD, get along to the tap room, Valhalla Brewing, only the very best of things brewed. And we appreciate their support as our media network sponsor. Chaps, let's get into it. Let's get you chaps talking instead of me. The Cats traveling to Darwin, looking for win number 8 of the season. Pretty fabulous start, really, for the Catters. What are your just off the cuff thoughts going into this game against the Suns? Johnny, we'll start with you.
Feeling as they're usually going, feeling pretty good about this week. It's going to be a tough game up in Darwin against the Suns. The Suns, I think, are playing a fairly good football, and I don't think it's going to be a walkover for Cats, especially with a pretty inexperienced lineup going up there. But I do believe after the last 2 weeks, and especially after last week, I think the Cats will be looking to respond, especially in that first quarter. And we know that when the Cats get going, they can score quickly, can kick a team out of a contest pretty quickly if they need to. But yeah, I think I'm really, really am excited for this one. Looking forward to a good, hard-fought contest. But I do believe the Cats will probably just be that little bit better than the Suns in terms of just like the areas and mainly defense. I think our defense is, it's still pretty rock solid. No one injured or missing from there. So if they can launch from defense into forward 50, I think we're going to have a pretty good night.
Sambo?
Yeah, likewise. Obviously, still haunted a little bit by the last time we played them. It was a pretty It was the last time, wasn't it? We only played them once last year, right?
Yeah, once.
And lost. And it was
Yeah,
it was a really dour loss. Although last year was obviously a disappointing year, I did keep my spirits up for most of the season, but I do remember that particular game feeling a little bit like, what are we doing here? What's going on? How is this the reality right now? So that is certainly niggling a little bit, but I think the Cats have every opportunity to win this, even with the players we've rested. Obviously we'll get into that. I like that the Cats have stuck to their plan with management and all that. And I think we should, by all means, win this one. Obviously, football's a strange game, and things like last week can happen. But overall, feeling pretty confident with just a little shadow of last year sort of tapping my shoulder.
Well, they were only our third loss in a 3-game losing streak streak to start the season last year, so there's nothing to worry about there. Well, weirdly enough, I don't know if you chaps remember when we were talking about the month ahead, this was the game I had earmarked as the game I thought we would lose, but then I thought we'd beat Port. So I don't know. I said that about 4 weeks into the season. I could see us winning all our games up until the time we beat whatever, and then we lose to the Suns. So I don't know. I don't know what to think about it really. Just taking it one day at a time here in my bedroom. Let's talk some team selection, chaps, because there's been a bit to discuss. Both teams have actually taken, I don't know, a bit of a load management outlook to this game, and it sort of makes sense. The Suns coming off a 5-day break. This is back-to-back games for them up in Darwin. And look, while they might be slightly more acclimatized than the Cat in terms of the conditions, still a lot. 5-day turnaround. They've managed Jake Rogers, Jed Walter, Nick Holman, and Jared Witt, who was the ruckman going into this contest that we thought, oh, this is going to be tough. Big matchup for Stanley. Well, the Cats have gone on and made 4 changes themselves. They've got obviously Cameron out with the concussion. Hawkins out managed for his milestone game next week at Cardinia Park. Stanley managed. Mitch Duncan managed. Then we've got Shannon Neal, Toby Conway, Jack Bowes, and Tanner Bruin all coming in, dropping Geelong's average age from about 42 and a half years to 24 for this game. Sambo, I'll go to you first here. What are your thoughts on the changes? What stands out?
No real surprises, I guess. I don't know. That's kind of how I feel. So this no Tui back in, right? That's Tui was out last week and is not listed as in. So that's probably the only thing that I thought might happen. Looking at what they have, who they have brought in, it all makes sense. Obviously, Jack Bowes and Tanner Bruin are pretty logical steps, and we're missing, Hawkins and Cameron. So Shannon Neal comes in, and regardless of whether it was the plan to rest Stanley or they're giving him a week off. I mean, they were already resting Stanley, and Conway on and off, so it doesn't seem out of the ordinary. But regardless of the reason, if Stanley comes out, obviously Conway goes in if he's healthy. So yeah, there's not necessarily a real obvious spot for Tui, but I did kind of just think that he would be in there after having a rest. But yeah, I've got no real issues here. I think Tanner Bruin probably after last week, I think he's maybe not 100% cracked the absolute code on how his how his game looks. We talk about players having not a perfect game, but their version of a game, like Gary Rowan. Like last week was almost a perfect Gary Rowan game. I don't think we necessarily know yet what a perfect Tanner Bruin game is, but I think his impact on the team has been maybe like falling a little bit under the radar, and then taking him out at the same time when we didn't have Dangerfield and also lost Jack Bowes. I think, I'm really glad that he's back in. I'm really excited to see how he comes back into it, whether he's got a bit of a fire under him after having a bit of a stint on the sidelines. So, albeit a very, very short one. So yeah, no, I don't really have any questions here. As I said, would like to see Tui in, but absolutely do not see where you would put him in. So no complaints really.
I'm pretty
Yeah.
excited personally about Conway coming in, getting a chance to go into the ruck. I think I'm not the only one who's probably been keen to see Conway play just because he's so fun to watch in the VFL. I'm going to have to vamp for a minute here because I was going to hand pass to Johnny for a question here, but that's all right. I can wax lyrical. I guess he's back.
No one has any
I was
idea.
just doing a little I was just doing a transitional thought. Then I was hand passing to John. Then he disappeared. And I was like, no, help me.
I
So
disappeared. I'm
yeah,
back.
very excited that's all right. Very excited to see Conway back in the side.
Yep.
I think it's good for Stanley to get a rest, and who knows how it looks from here on out as to how we balance the ruck situation. But I for one personally think Stanley still has a really valuable role to play for this team, not just off the field either. On it, I'm not part of the alarmist crew that are like, gotta get rid of him. He should never set foot on an AFL field again. I think it's no surprises. Anyway, Conway in just makes sense. But Johnny, obviously feel free to offer thoughts on whatever part you want, but I specifically wanted to come to you and talk about your thoughts on how the forward line looks with these changes. Obviously, you lose both Hawkins and Cameron, and you bring in Shannon Neal. But do you have any concerns or thoughts about how Geelong, sets up and performs inside forward 50 in the absence of Jeremy Cameron and Hawkins?
No, not really. I think this is going to be what our forward lines are going to look like in the future, apart from obviously Gary Rowan, because he's similar age to Hawk and Cameron, so he's now obviously the veteran, the leader of that forward line. And who knows, he still could be for a few more years after Cameron and Hawkins retire. But yeah, I really, really like the look of this forward line. It's a good glimpse of what the future can be. I was seeing one game from Shannon Neal this year, and he looked absolutely terrific. Like, he looks strong, he's tall, he's able to outmuscle guys, he's able to outmark them. And yeah, just really love that game he did play. So I think he's super hungry to not only kick goals, but also prove that he does belong in the AFL. And I think this could be a really, really big game for him. I think this could be one of those games where he announces himself yet again and hopefully bags a good bag of goals alongside Henry and Tyson Stengel. And I feel like he's another one of those players that he's going to take the best defender because he's tall. As I said, he's tall, he's really strong, he's athletic, he's able to move around the ground really well. So you don't want to leave him just doing what you want. And then you also got Gary Rowan there, who's, absolute veteran, guy who knows what needs to be done in the forward line, where he needs to play, where other guys need to be, and how to involve teammates. Yeah, I think this forward line is looking really good, absent of Hawkins and Cameron. And yeah, I think it's the one forward line that I was hoping to see, and we got to see it. Yeah, and hopefully Neil can get a couple of games going his way soon. I'm not sure if he'll retain his spot for next week, but he's going to put on a big show, I reckon.
Yeah. Oh well. There's been a bit of commentary online that the Cats have been exposed, John. So might as well just play the kids, I reckon, from here on out. I know it's a 7-2 start. Before you know, it'll be 7-10. You might as well get games into the VFL kids. Pump them in. No, it's
It's all down here from here. It's not like we got back end
that's right.
talent
Cool.
seeping in the VFL, just waiting for their opportunity.
I reckon there's some players that if they weren't injured might have got a taste at AFL level. I'm thinking players like Phoenix Foster. I'm thinking of a couple of the talls we drafted this year who have been out injured. I think it's Mitch Edwards and Joe Furphy. I think Furphy's more of a ruck prospect. I think he's a basketball conversion. I think, but I think Mitch Edwards is the other tall forward that we drafted. But anyway, they've both had their issues with injury. So, but then again, as some people have pointed out, it's going to be slick and slippery conditions probably in a fairly humid and hot atmosphere up in Darwin. So going with an ever so slightly smaller to medium forward line probably makes sense. As we discussed in the Patreon focus a couple of days ago about Tyson Stengel, he took 4 marks inside 50 last week. Against who do we play? Port, which not only led the Cats but led the game itself. So it's not like the Cats are going to have to struggle to find targets inside forward 50. There's a lot of ways to skin the proverbial cat. So let's move on from team selection here. And Sambo, I'll come to you first here, I think. Oh, whoever, I don't care. What we want to talk about is what we want to see. What's that one thing that going into this matchup, maybe it's something you haven't seen in the last couple of weeks, maybe it's just something you're projecting that you'd like to see. Yeah, what is it? What's that one thing?
A win. Uh, there's a few things, and I think this is something I've mentioned before, several times in this segment. We've talked about it just in general, but I've definitely had it as my one thing I'd like to see, and it's just a little bit different this time because it's in direct retaliation to last week. And it's something that we did see last week, but it took us a good half of football to see it enacting, and that is just the structural, the behind the ball, off the ball structure of the Cats working so that the Suns just get that frustrated, like stagnant ball movement. Like that's really the thing that, there's a lot of things going on, but really the thing that cut us open with Port was just their ability to move it fast through the middle and hit targets. And not even, seemingly they didn't even have to think about where they were kicking it. They just kicked it anywhere, and there was a Port player to take it basically. And then later in the game, we mentioned it on the podcast, and we mentioned it live, Jake. You and I said a couple of times, we're like, this is what you love to see when they've got a kick out or they've taken a great mark and they don't know where to go. We've structured up off the ball so that they're frustrated, because I don't think our movement, I don't think our conversion inside 50 is really within question. I think our final delivery into the 50, I think, still could do a little tuning up. But beyond that, I think our ball movement is fantastic, but it relies so heavily on that turnover game and that defensive structure. So the one thing I'd really like to see, I just think it's so crucial to our game, is having that right from the start and just making them absolutely pull their hair out looking for options.
Yeah, I like that one. I like that one thing I want to see because, I was going to mention something similar, so I won't. One thing I want to see is, I'm just going to go back to what I was talking about, Shannon Neal. I just want to see Shannon Neal light up that forward line like he's coming in his own, and it's his. I feel like it's Ollie Henry and Shannon Neal's turn to take some limelight, and I'd like to see Shannon Neal lead the way. I don't think he'll kick most goals, but I think he will definitely be a massive presence. And if he can crash packs, take marks, kick a couple of goals, and just cause havoc in that forward line, then I'll be super happy and go, our forward line is pretty secure in the near future.
I, Chaps, want to see O'Sheen Mullen start the game on the bench, on the field. I don't really mind which. I just don't want to see him used as the sub again. I was really impressed by his shutdown ability on Horn Francis last week, and it was only when I went back and watched the highlights that the Cats put up that I actually went, holy smokes, he actually did some really exciting plays the other way as well in terms of his own attack on the footy, his own ability to win, a ball out of contested situations. I've been banging the drum for a little while, about this player. And look, I get that not everyone, has as little life as I do, and so doesn't necessarily have the time to sit on YouTube and trawl through old County Mayo Gaelic football games. But I do have that little going on in my life that I can do that, and I did do that. And they, like, he is a superstar. Like, he won the equivalent of, the Rising Star nomination. It was like 2 years in a row or something when he was playing for Mayo. This dude is a potential, like, difference making sort of player. He's not just like a bit type player. If he takes to footy like as fully and completely as he might, his everything else is so off the charts. Like his explosiveness, like how many players can really tag Horn Francis? Like you wouldn't send Mark O'Connor to do that job because he doesn't have the athleticism to go with him. He doesn't have the explosiveness. There were times on the weekend when you go back and watch the highlights where Horn Francis thought, "Oh, beauty! I'll just put on the afterburners here and I'll be away in space." And Mullen just went with him step for step and closed him down. So, like, if he starts to get the ability, which I think he's already demonstrated at VFL level. Though I have to say, I've never seen him play in the middle like he did on the weekend or last Friday night at VFL level. I've not seen him do that. This dude is immensely exciting. So I want to see him play 4 quarters, and I don't really mind if he plays as a tag or if he plays, free and is allowed to win his own ball, whatever. I just want to see him play 4 quarters so he can just get an even bigger look at him. And I thought the fact that Chris Scott singled him out for mention in the post-game presser was relatively significant, given how Chris Scott normally is like, you don't like to comment on individuals, blah, blah. Like the fact that almost unprovoked, Chris Scott singled him out for some praise. I thought he looked like a Geelong player. Which is about as effusive of praise as you'll get from Scotty in a presser. But yeah, so that's what I want to see. I've blathered on there for about 3 minutes about O'Sheen Mutlin. Yeah.
I love it.
Any
Love
final thoughts, chaps, before we get out of here?
Let's melt them Suns.
Yeah, look, I think it's a really good test of fortitude for the Cats. I don't think, and this doesn't mean it's all on the line. Like if we lose this one, it's all over. 7-3 is still also totally okay. Like it's still a perfectly fine position to be in. But that being said, I think if we win this game, it's not going to be much of a blip in the media. I don't think they're really going to pay much attention to us beating the Suns. But I think it actually is a really good test of these players. With the players we've got out, missing our captain, missing our 2 star forwards, and on the ropes a little bit. Like I said, it's not the end of the world, but we are definitely being tested. There's some of these players who this is kind of the first time of really being like having the pressure on, being on a winning streak, and then sort of like people starting to ask questions and poke. So I think it's going to be, regardless of the outcome, I think it's going to be a really good sort of pressure gauge. And I think if we lose, don't throw a tanty, don't lose all hope. But if we win, like let's love it up a little bit. Like I think it's going to be way more important than a lot of the media are going to acknowledge.
Definitely.
Geelong are in that space, Johnny, where if we win this game, it's like whatever. It was the Suns, and the Suns aren't much. And if we lose, it'll be like, oh my God, the sky is falling at Cardinia Park.
Most definitely. That will be. It's going to be one extreme for the Suns and the Cats. If the Cats lose, like the Suns are about to, the dawn is rising for the Suns as a top 8 team, and the kitty litter's been chucked out, and Cats are going to have to rebuild next year because they're out and done, and they're too old, they're too slow. Might as well take it to the vet and have it put down. And
they're too young, John. They're too young.
And
they don't have the experience now.
Yeah. And if the Cats win, it'll just be like, oh yeah, Cats won. Suns fought hard. They fought valiantly, the Suns, to get a victory, but just fell short against a mighty Cats team. So yeah, there's not going to be much love for the Cats if we win, and there's going to be a whole lot of vitriol chuck the Cats way to lose. And on the social media side,
for the last 17
it would
years.
just be, and social media side would just be, umpire's fault, which is all you're seeing at the moment online when a team wins or a team loses. It's not they played well. It's, the umpires loved them this time. So, if that's all you can think of, don't go on social media and be a hack.
Yeah, exactly. No, I agree. I agree with what you've both said. I think it is a really nice test. Someone on Twitter, I can't remember who it was, put up the back in 2022, the Cats went into this game and they debuted. Was it Dempsey and Nevitt, or they debuted? No, it wasn't Dempsey, but it was Nevitt. Maybe like Cooper Stevens or something. They sort of rested some players. It was up on the road against the Giants, and the Cats won the game by like 35 points, and everyone was like, "What? That wasn't meant to happen." And obviously that it ended up being a part of, you know, a little bit of a signifier that the Cats were going to be pretty good that year. So I think these little sneaky road tests against teams that are, you're going to get their best shot. I think it's a good testing ground. So yeah,
Nice.
excited to see the game. Looking forward to it. Thank you so much for watching the show. Thanks for listening. Make sure that you hit subscribe or follow, whatever's relevant on the app that you're listening or watching on. If you want to come with us now to do the Patreon match predictions, not the player focus, we do that on the recaps. Then make sure you go on over and start your 7-day free trial on the Hoops Crew Patreon. But that's it for this part of the show. We're going to go now. Thanks so much, guys. Until next time. Go Cats.
Go
Go
Cats.
Cats.